Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chalavet Movies. My name is John, and over the past month I've watched 10 4Ks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rank those 10 4Ks in order of what I thought was the lowest to the best. And when I get to my next 10 4Ks watched, I will then go and do the same again with those 10. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them at the end of the year. I'm going to put every winner in a sort of Royal Rumble and see what comes out as the best movie that I've watched on 4K in a sort of since I got my new telly, which is about the 3rd of April. So on my new TV, I think these movies come across the best they've ever looked to me. And what I've done is I went for movies that I haven't seen on 4K. I probably have seen all of these movies before, with a few exceptions. But what I've done is I've watched all of these movies bar one on my TV's audio. And that does come out across as a sort of Atmos mix. And I think my new TV comes across the best sound I've ever heard coming from an actual TV. So what I'm going to work to getting a Dolby Atmos soundbar. I'm not so bothered about the woofer. The subwoofer I've got is really good. So I'm going to get one of them, and then that'll be my sort of setup done. So I've just got to say this is just my opinion, and this is what I see on the day, and when I've watched them, this is the enjoyment I've got from these movies, and I must admit I've been blown away by all of them to certain degrees. So coming in at number 10 is The Hills of Eyes. Now this was shot in 16mm, so it's never going to win the race. But I've got to say, initially when I first checked this out, I checked out most of the start of the movie and I didn't really think it was that much of an upgrade. But when I watched the movie as a whole, I must admit the second half of the movie does come across much better. Mainly when it gets dark, because the sort of grain goes when it gets dark. When the film's bright, as it is at the start of the movie, it does seem to be very grainy. Now the feel of it graininess is it's quite noisy grain. So I'm not a grain hater or anything, but I do think this movie let itself down in the first half. But once when the film goes dark, I think that's when it comes alive. And to be honest, there's some scenes actually in the dusk area or maybe the next morning. I think that this movie does look quite good. And it's not a horrible transfer by any means. It's just that I think that personally the start of the movie isn't the best looking on 4K. But I do think it is a good upgrade of the Blu-ray. So that's at number 10, that's The Hills of Eyes. At number 9 is The Toolbox Murders. Now again, this is a 16mm print, but it does look really good. I've got to say that this movie, especially when it's in the dark scenes, it looks really good. And this is by far the best it's ever looked. The colours in here look really nice as well. But because it's got that kind of very low budget 16mm approach to the movie, which I think suits the movie, because I don't think this movie should be sort of polished or clean, although it is a very clean print. But again, it was never going to be top of the pile. I knew that when I went into it. But I've got to say that some of these movies are on 16mm and shit, and you think, well, why would they put them on 4K? And to a certain extent, some of them might let themselves down drastically on 4K. But The Hills of Eyes in this one, they do come across quite well. And I do think that this movie does benefit a lot from being on the 4K format. It's got Dolby Atmos as well. This is the only one I've watched with my soundbar. And it was a great soundtrack and it come across really well. But I do think that this, because it's of its time, I don't think it was the best I've ever heard and best I could hear in surround sound. But it is what it is. It is a good version of this movie, and I did have a great time with it. I watched this movie quite a few times, but obviously these are the first times I watched this in the 4K. So at number 9, that's The Toolbox Murders. So coming in at number 8 is Flesh for Frankenstein. Now, these ones, this is the first one that's coming out with, obviously these are all 35mm prints, and I think most of them are from the 35mm source to a certain extent. So this one here might be the bottom of the list in the 35mm ones, but I'll tell you what, they are all good from here. Just this one was the one I thought is the least of them, but it's still absolutely brilliant. I'm not taking away anything from these movies. All of these ones in these top 10 I would highly recommend to anybody, but beware, these are 16mm, so beware what you're getting yourself into with them. If you're thinking about brand new spanking Jaws type transfers, you'll never get that, because you can't get that with it. But this one here, it looks absolutely amazing in 4K. It's by far the best it's ever looked. It's a massive jump up from the Blu-ray as far as I'm concerned. It's a huge jump up from the DVD, which looked adequate, but you realise how bad it is when you see something on 4K. And obviously this Vinegar Syndrome release is just unreal. It's one of the best releases I've got in my collection. So a big shout out to John Hall for getting this to me. So that's at number 8, that's Flesh for Frankenstein. So at number 7 is Invasion of the Bodysnatchers. This is released by Kino Lorber, who I know do great 4Ks. And this one here has got Dolby Vision as well. Now, I do know that when I put this on, the colours on here look absolutely stunning. The picture on here is very vibrant and bright. It's also very sharp, and it's the first time I really sat down and watched this movie. I've got to admit that I thought the movie was better in the second half than it was in the first half for me. So this is the first time I really remembered sitting down and watching this movie all the way through. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie. Even the one that I got on Arrow, I don't think I've even watched that disc. So this is probably the last time I've seen it was on TV. So this is like night and day revelation when this was when I saw the picture quality on here. It just shows you how well these older films can transfer up. Now I do think that probably maybe Arrow might release this in the UK, but if they do release it on this with this transfer, it would be absolutely stunning. So yeah, we're really happy to get this. This is another one I owe thanks to John Ho for getting this for me. So yeah, so that's at number 7. That's Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So at number 6 is Robocop. Now, when I put this in, I thought it looked quite good, but a bit alright. I've got to say that, quite funnily enough, the colour scheme in here for most of the movie is done with a lot of greys because a lot of suits in the movie. And it's a lot of sort of like corporateness in it. So this movie doesn't really have them sort of clothing effects, which is like the bright clothing. It does in the second half of the movie. But when you get some good splashes of colour, it comes alive. And there's some really vibrant colours in here towards the end. The movie itself, I haven't watched it for a long time. It must be when the last Robocop came out in 2014 was probably the last time I ever watched this with my son, I would imagine. And I can't remember even, I do know I've watched the director's cut, but I haven't watched it that for the longest time. So to be honest, I don't know how anybody would go from the director's cut to the normal cut anymore, because for me, I would never ever, I would always take the longer cut, especially with the amount of gore in it. I've got to say that this movie, I knew this movie is gory. I mean, I saw this movie 1,000 times when it was come out on VHS, but I forgot how absolutely brutal this movie is. But I had a really good time with it. In fact, it's probably one of the ones I enjoyed most on this list. Funny enough, I didn't think I would. I honestly think that this, the more this movie went on, the better the picture quality got. And to be at the end, it started off, I was putting it quite low on the list, and then I moved it right up because it really does come alive. And to be honest, the 4K print on this, when you look at it as a whole, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it's got a few drops with bits where they put Ed 209 in it. It does take the quality down a touch when they're putting that sort of thing, like superimposing that in the film. It doesn't look too good, but most of the other stuff looks absolutely brilliant. And obviously anything that's to do with like outside stuff, it just looks amazing. So I'd never seen the previous 4K remastered Blu-ray of Arrow. I didn't own that one, although I did hover over it quite a few times. I'm glad I didn't, because if I'm honest, this one looks like it should be far superior. It's far superior from the previous Blu-ray I've got, which is like a triple pack. So this is highly, highly recommended. And if you put it on at first and you think it's not that good, wait until the picture starts to kick in and you'll get a really good time with this movie. I thought it looked absolutely fantastic on 4K. That's coming in at number 6. That's Robocop. So coming in at number 5, and to be honest, I nearly put Robocop ahead of this. The only reason why I didn't is because this movie is so colourful. And the colours in here, which make this movie just looks absolutely spectacular. So number 5 it is An American Werewolf in London. Now I do think I have got the 4K remastered Blu-ray of this, and I do think this is a massive jump up. The picture quality is so sharp, and the colours in here are what make it. The grain in here is actually, I think all the other ones I've seen of this movie in Blu-ray have always been quite grainy. This one here doesn't seem to be that grainy, and maybe it's just a setting I had on me when I was watching it, but I do think that this movie is spectacular. It's one of my favourite movies of all time. This is by far the best it's ever looked, and I do recommend Robocop and American Werewolf in London as solid upgrades over the Blu-rays. I think that anybody who's got them, the previous ones, will be quite impressed by this and happy to get them, because if you get them and they don't look that good, you would be like, well, that's not... I mean, Hills of Eyes isn't a huge upgrade over the Blu-ray for me, but the Blu-ray is it's acceptable, and also the 4K isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad, it's quite close in my opinion. But I do think that Robocop and American Werewolf in London are a big cut above. So yeah, I can't say anything about this movie that nobody doesn't know. It's a classic, and I just think that this was always going to I was always going to buy this one, even though I knew I had double dipped. Well, I didn't know at the time when I bought the 4K Blu-ray. But anyway, so yeah, so this is highly, highly recommended. I mean, all of these ones are highly recommended, if I'm honest, if you are wanting to be starting off collecting 4Ks. I know that Pete, Playtendoguy, link down below, he's just started out in the 4K format. I know he hasn't got his 4K player yet, but when he does, he's got his 4K telly at the minute. He'll have a blast when he starts looking through these like upgrades. I'm looking forward to seeing what he says about his journey into 4K. So anyway, so that's at number 5. Highly recommended. It looks absolutely great, and also the colours in it are brilliant. So that's American Wealth in London. So coming in at number 4 is a Shout Factory release. It is Alligator. Now again, I owe John Hall a great deal of thanks for sourcing me these movies, which I've got from the States, and he's imported them in for us, and it's absolutely brilliant to actually own these movies. I heard a load of good reports about this movie, and to be honest, they were all correct. This movie looks and sounds absolutely spectacular. And this is the first time I've really seen it in a long time. It's the first time I really sat down and watched it, and you know, like, because sometimes I think, if you think about it, when you're watching these movies on VHS, you might not have took that much notice of it. I think that these days, when you become a bit of a connoisseur, if that's the right word to use, you do tend to sort of absolutely drink the movie in, as well as just watching a movie. You're looking at sort of the way shots are set up, the way colours look, the way the darkness in here, the actual black levels is another thing where, this is why I've done this with my new TV, which is can show off the black levels in the movie, which if you haven't had that experience, it's quite revelation to when you're faced with these black screens. Especially this movie has got a lot of stuff happening in the sewers, and it's got a lot of black stuff in it, but in the blackness you can see everything that's going on. But I like something that you can see that's jet black. Sounds a really strange thing to say, but when you've been in that mix and you've looked at these black levels, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. This one here is it's a great film as well, I've got to say, and it's got loads of special features on it, and I do think that Shout Factory or Scream Factory, they do amazing stuff, and I always feel like I'm confident with their stuff, like I am with Vinegar Syndrome, especially Blue Underground, Arrow. There's a lot of Arrow titles in here, as you see. Alligator is one of those ones that if you haven't seen it, I mean, these could be classed as a little bit of like sort of, you know, like bargain basement horror or crazy horror, or just movies that you think from the 80s, but these look exceptional in 4K. And this one here, it's from 1980. You could say it's like kind of like a B movie, but as well as that, it just comes across. I think with the 4K, the look in 4K, you see this movie's in different lights. So that's at number 4. That's Alligator. So number 3 is a blockbuster, which you're not seeing too many of them on this 10 so far. It is Dunkirk. I've always wanted to watch this, and I thought, right, this is going to be the time when I get to watch this movie, and I do think it looks absolutely spectacular. I don't know what this was shot in, probably shot in 4K, and I know it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so I know it's going to look good. And I think the fact that this movie, which is it's kind of like a strange movie, it does tell a tale, but it tells it in a really like an odd fashion. It's like a war movie, but not like a war movie. It's like a war tale, if I'm going to say that. I do think it tells a certain period, maybe a day or two, in somebody's life and what happens to them. I do think it's a great film, and I think that the Spitfire scenes and also the stuff that happens to them and where they are on the beach looks incredible. The sound on here is unreal, the Spitfires and everything like that, the dog fights, the fact that it's shot mainly in daylight, it's just absolutely incredible. I think that I was really expecting something good with this, and it did absolutely completely blow us away. I do know that these movies, when you get them, sometimes you get some modern day movies and they don't look very good on 4K. They look like a very small upgrade, which is a shame. But this one here, I can tell you that, and I think this one's cheap as chips for anyone looking at 4Ks that are cheap for a spectacular sort of watch on a movie. Really do go for this movie. I do think it's a great movie as well. I had a good time with it, and but it's a different movie to your normal war movie, I think, if I'm saying that right. So at number 3, that's Dunkirk. So at number 2, and Arrow have done very good in this top 10, it is Tremors. Now me and Deborah watched this the other day, and we had such a good time with it. I haven't watched Tremors for a long time. I know I've got a pack there with the first 4 in. I think I've got number 5 as well. And we will be watching them. Deborah had a great time in this movie, actually. I thought she would do. When she sort of got over the fact of what we're watching, I'd say, look, it's just a creature feature. Just go with it. And she did. And I said to her, I said, what do you think the picture quality on that? She says, it does look really nice. This movie is kind of shot really outside. It's shot in a kind of desert. And it's just got rocks and everything in it. And it just looks pin sharp. The colours on it just look fantastic. It's, like I say, it's shot in daylight, so it's always going to look good. The textures on people's faces are just unreal. When I put it on, I knew it was good. I mean, when I get these, I do kind of flick through them and see what they look like. And I get like a bit of a flavour of what they're going to look like. And I knew this one was going to look good. But I always like to watch the full one and then say what me sort of eventual evaluation is, and this one here just looks absolutely incredible. It's a shame it doesn't come with a slipcover, but you know my thoughts on that. But I think that as movies go, you can't go past this movie as a movie. It's a great movie. But this one's something, if it's come down in the sale at £15 at the moment, you know it'll be in the sale at £15 again in the future. Maybe you might find it cheaper in CX. But if you're looking for a really good, like this movie's from 1990, so it's not a new movie, but it looks sensational. Because it basically where it's filmed, with being shot outside in the desert, that's really good. A good sort of combination to get like a really good looking 4K. The sound quality in here was brilliant as well. Like I say, I'm moving my sound bar for the rest of these movies for the next 10. But it won't be the Dolby Atmos sound bar that will be coming in the future. Hopefully I'll get that in the next couple of months. Really looking forward to seeing that and seeing what it adds to the mix. So yeah, so number 2, this is like out of the Arrow stuff. They've all been good, don't get us wrong. Hills of Eyes has been like the least one, but it's not. It's still an upgrade, I would say, over the Blu-ray if you're going for it. You might not want to get it. You might want to pay full price for it. I didn't pay full price for it, and I think it's worth getting if you can get it cheap. It's a great presentation, a great package of the movie, and you get some great stuff inside it. But this one here, it's one of those ones I might upgrade it to the bigger box set, but I'm not too sure about that. But I'm really happy to get it. So number 2, that's Tremors. So number 1 is the first one I watched on my new TV. I don't know why I picked it actually. I think me and Deborah wanted to watch a movie, and I had to get one that was like suitable for her. Most of these films she wouldn't have watched anyway. But so number 1, and this one looked absolutely spectacular, is The Suicide Squad. So the reason why I put this up so high on the list is because the colours look absolutely sensational. And as well, what it happens is, this was the first time that I noticed when black levels are important, because a lot of this happens at night. It happens on like dark beaches, but it's like in kind of like dusk and like sun and like moonlight. And it just, the colour, the fact that you can see all these things happening, which you probably wouldn't have saw in a really like a DVD back in the day. I wouldn't have had the sort of capability to show you what's happening in these sort of darkness, these shadows. But I love that sort of way that it looked. Obviously this movie's, I don't think it's got IMAX scenes in it, but it's really ultra sharp. And I think the movie was great. I had a really good time in it. I am willing to check out the other one which I bought the other day. I know it's not going to be half as good as this. We are starting to watch the Peacemaker TV series, which we're really enjoying as well. So yeah, so there's a lot of good things to be said about this. I hope they do another one actually. I think they probably will, because this one I think was a hit. And yeah, so I can say safely that this is, if you're thinking about it, and this one's coming out in sales as well. A lot of these are, I mean, some of the special editions are hard to get, and maybe they're long out of print. But if you can get these ones, you know, sort of like on a sale or thereabouts, I think you'd be laughing, because I think 4K is all about seeing something you're not really seeing on a Blu-ray. Now, if you get a Blu-ray and it looks really good, that might be where you should stop with it. If you get a 4K that looks really poor, then you feel a little bit duped, because you think, well, I may as well got the Blu-ray on that one. But I can safely say, if you get these ones here, you will think that you are buying something spectacular. Yes, all right, Hills of Eyes isn't the most spectacular looking, but for the Hills of Eyes, it does look pretty good. I don't think you'll get another Hills of Eyes that looks that good. So to be honest, when I put these movies on and I've looked at them, I thought, is anyone going to top this? Because I watched this was the first one I watched, and I was so blown away with it. And to be honest, not one of them has come. They've come a bit close, but not that close to it. I do think this is a step above. So that's number 1, that's The Suicide Squad. So okay, I'll start watching another 10 4Ks that I haven't seen before. So this previous number 1, which is Suicide Squad, will go in the mix for the Royal Rumble of the best 4Ks I've got in my collection. I've watched this year, should I say. So anyway, that'll be coming along sometime this year. So okay, thanks for watching. You take care, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.